Entrepreneurship will always do more than government.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mentality. It's your boy Gambo, and I have a very special guest with me today, Trevor Cassaberry, CEO of Cassaberry Consulting LLC. Today, we're going to be discussing how you could leverage your side hustle or business with your 9 to 5. Stay tuned as we chop it up in another interesting episode. All right, welcome back to the show, guys. I'm here today with Trevor. Trevor, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. So, Trav, I'm gonna give you a light introduction. I'm gonna give you a chance to also introduce yourself. But for those who don't know you, my man Trav is the CEO of Cassaberry Consulting and also the author of For the Hustler book series. Is that a good or reasonable introduction for you, Trav?
Yeah, that's the two main keys. CEO of Cassaberry Consulting, which is the number one logistics consulting firm in the Bronx,
Nice.
and the author of the For the Hustler book series, which once I'm done with volume three, should be the best book series about business.
Ooh, tell me a little bit more about that. Book three. What's book three going to be included? What's that going to include?
So, book number one was all about how to produce or generate income by selling a product. So, it teaches you how to identify your skill set and your resources that you already have and how to monetize them.
Mm-hmm.
Book number two is all about how to generate income by investing. So, it breaks down. The first thing it does is break down like 11 investment myths. Stuff like, should you start investing in real estate, stocks, or equity first, stuff like that. Is marriage a profitable or a good investment for the
Mm.
primary breadwinner? And then the rest of the chapters go through essentially asking you questions that'll make you establish your investment morals. So it goes from the investment myths to stocks to real estate and then equity investing.
Mm.
And then for the Hustler Volume 3, we'll teach how to generate income as a negotiator. So it talks about the first thing it does is tell my story of pretty much how I used, leverage and negotiation to produce a 25% increase in my pay at my job. And from there, it talks about how to, use leverage to negotiate as an employee, how to do it to negotiate as a consumer, how to negotiate as a merchant, and then lastly, how to negotiate as a closer or a consultant or even like an agent where the key is most people just think of, I find one person who needs a service, I find somebody else who provides it, I link them together and I get paid in the middle. Pretty much what I'm teaching is, what types of products you can actually include in that deal
Mm-hmm.
that will allow you to get paid every time they make a sale, almost like in perpetuity, as opposed to you just getting paid once for putting together what could be a lifetime deal.
Mm. Yeah, that's like really in depth. So I feel like it seems like with each book you're kind of going like a little like you're going a little deeper. And so
Yeah, for sure.
I guess like are you covering like all investment bases, or are you covering everything from like real estate to like the stock market to anything, or are you still looking on one thing?
Uh, where book number two is definitely stocks, real estate, and equity, but it's not what a lot of books got a bad habit of doing is kind of teaching people the same way. This is how everyone's supposed to invest, and it's
Mm.
just especially with nowadays how easy it is to start investing because you could
Mm-hmm.
do it from your phone or your laptop. Everybody can invest. It don't matter how much money you have. It almost don't even matter where you are, right? You could
Right.
be in another country still buying stocks off a laptop. So because of that, that means that everybody is kind of investing from the same from a very different perspective. Maybe back in the day, everybody who invested had over a certain amount of money, and lived in certain cities and lived certain lives. But now, you got somebody who make $35,000, they buying cryptocurrency, but you got somebody who got $5 million buying the same thing for the same rate at the same time.
Right.
So with that, it's all about everybody having a model in place where they can just follow these rules that they made for themselves and show discipline, and it'll prove in their investment account. So even if somebody follows me on Instagram at Don underscore Travolta, they'll see like since February, I've been literally like every day. Sometimes I miss a day, but every day I just post a screenshot or like a video recording of my stock account just so they could see
Mm.
like I'm just putting in like $250 a month,
Mm-hmm.
$125 from each check. and the thing is growing faster than I thought it was gonna grow. I was saying I
Mm.
was gonna do that and try to get 5,000 by the end of the year, just to prove to people
Right,
slow
right.
and steady will win the race. But I'm at 4,400 right now. We done broke
Mm.
4,600 last week, so I'm like, we're gonna hit 5,000 by the end of this month, and that's not
Right.
even June. So,
Facts.
you know, I'm excited, and for the Hustler Volume 3 kind of will just wrap everything together because for the Hustler Volume 1 essentially puts money in your pocket. For the
Mm.
Hustler Volume 2, make sure you invest in some of the money that you made. That way, you're not losing out on anything, right? Even if
Mm.
you got to spend what you got left, the rest of it is accruing interest because you invested it somewhere. And then lastly, it's just all right when you're no longer when you're no longer the one out here selling a product or a service and you hiring other people to do it and you already have your investments in place, how else can you still excel in business? And at that
Mm.
point, it's really about linking other businesses together, that can create other things.
Word. I mean, I'm definitely excited for it. I think we'll definitely revisit back on how people can kind of get access to these books if they want to. But I just want to make sure that since I have you here asking me the right questions, I basically want to talk to you about how people can basically leverage their businesses to help support their 9 to 5.
Right,
Whether they've created that or they're thinking about creating it, how can that be beneficial to someone who still has a full time job? So is that
right.
something that I know you have a lot of experience with businesses, and you have your own businesses. You actually have written books and stuff like that. What's some of the best advice that you would say that people can take away from that?
So one, most people think of I'm gonna have my 9 to 5 and I'm gonna use the money from my 9 to 5 to fund my business.
Mm.
And although that's a great way to do it, it is rough because depending on how much money you make and how much it take to live, you might be trying to fund a business on the extra $300 a month you got, and
Mm.
that ain't really going to do it. So really, the other side of it is you kind of leveraging your 9 to 5 money to support your business, but you need to make it come full circle by using your business to help excel your 9 to 5. So
Mm.
what I was able to do was to use what I learned from my job. I use my money from my job to fund my business. I work in construction management.
Okay.
I originally was a construction inspector on a contract on a maintenance contract on New York City or New York State highways, but it was only in New York City.
Okay.
And we would maintain all the traffic cameras and the traffic signs, the big black ones that tell you, it's a delay going to Grand Central or something.
Right.
We would fix them if they're broke or put in new ones if they were being upgraded and stuff like that. Put in extra straps in the winters to secure them. And I was using that extra time, in my car to write out business plans. I was using the extra money to fund my business.
Mm.
But eventually, I started to realize, okay, how the hell is the company I'm working for able to pay me? If how they able to pay me? Obviously, they
Right.
they got to be making money from the state, but how
Right.
is the state paying them? Like, where is the state getting the money from? So I started just asking questions, and I learned, okay, this is a government contract. The government doesn't hire full time on electricians and construction management. They outsource it, so they
Mm.
essentially take the tax dollars, put out a contract almost like an auction, and a bunch of companies that's pre-approved will bid on it. Saying we can do it in this much time with this much manpower, and it'll cost you this much money. The state brings in a private consultant, pays them to give them a recommendation on what how much manpower it should take, how much time it should take, and how much money it should take. All the offers that come in that's within 15% of that are taken into consideration. Anything lower than 15% of that price is considered, this is a company that's under budgeting, so they're going to likely cost us more than they're saying, so they throw it out immediately.
Mm.
Any company that's 15% above that, it's like they overcharging us, let's throw them out. And then everybody else left in the middle, they typically just take the cheapest pre-approved person.
Wow.
So right, or the cheapest pre-approved business. The only way to not, and the thing is, you would imagine small businesses would be the best ones because they have the
Right.
least amount of overhead, but the larger corporations have the most history of working these state contracts.
Mm.
So they're able to leverage some of these contracts before they even come out for small businesses to be able to bid on. So in learning that whole process, I was able to realize, okay, these are the positions that are most valuable in the contract. These are the things that make you more valuable in these positions. Learning what it's like to work in the field and in the office. Now I can take two jobs, but on my business looks like, you know, we're good on in the office for construction management and in the
Mm-hmm.
field, even though it's just me. So when I basically the long story short, the old company I worked for missed one of my raises. I didn't even coming out of college. I didn't even know people got 2% raises. I thought you just got what you got, like what you
Right.
negotiated for from jump. So, you know, they forgot to give me a raise, and the money didn't come. Now it's supposed to come, and I started getting frustrated because I felt like I was underpaid a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I had been there for a while, and then to find out that y'all underpaid me. And then they weren't able to give me the money in retro because we were already moved on to the next contract. So they were
Mm-hmm.
like, trying to have the next company give me a raise just so I would stay.
Mm.
And it was like, if that's the case, I'm basically working twice for the same money y'all owe me. You know what I mean? And
Right.
then y'all
Right.
just willing to keep it going. So I'm like, I'm not about to work double for money y'all already owe.
Right.
So it just gave me the confidence to put my resume out there on the market to see what happens. And next thing you know, that was like the December of 2019.
Okay.
Next thing you know, January 2020, companies are like ringing my phone off the hook, trying to bring me in to work for them. They offering more money and things of that nature. And one thing I noticed was when I first started working for that company, um, they I started working for them, let's say like a week before the paperwork was
Uh huh.
like processed and everything. So I was technically supposed to already have accepted their what's the word, the offer letter for
Right.
the payment, but they just kept paying me whatever I was making until the contract went over to the next.
Okay.
Um, when they finally sent the offer sheet online, right after the offer sheet, it automatically tells you you have to take a drug test within the next 5 days. And I'm
Right.
like, oh man, I wasn't prepared for that. So uh, because of that, I'm just like, yo, what am I gonna do? So I was panicking for like 5 days.
Uh huh.
Because it was that was like a Thursday. It was a long weekend. I forget what holiday it was, but it was a long weekend.
Uh huh.
And I come back Monday or Sunday night. I went to the laundromat because it's a 24-hour laundromat, and I'm just sitting there thinking, 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 and I'm like, do I tell my EIC what's going on? But I'm like, no, technically, because I learned everything about the contract. I'm like, technically, the EIC, he works for the state, so he's the
Mm.
client. I don't want to ruin, talking to the client, and the client gotta protect me. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Technically, I gotta talk to the business. So I sent an email saying how I saw that there was something for a drug test, and I don't know if there's gonna be enough time because I'm the lead inspector, and if I got to take days off, I need to be compensated because X, Y, Z. I'm just trying to delay the test as much as possible.
Mm.
And they're like, "Don't worry about it. We'll have our HR person call you to talk it all out." And when that happens, she calls me, and she had a Spanish accent. So I just in my head, I'm from the Bronx, so I just immediately in my head I think like this might just be like a Puerto Rican or Dominican chick
Right.
from the
Right. Right.
Bronx that just
Right.
got a job, so she'll understand.
Yeah. Like I bet she one of us. Like, yeah. Like,
So I tell her I'm like, and I came up with I knew leverage. So
right.
it wasn't true, but I told her I'm like, listen, uh, me and my wife are Rastafarians. And the reason I chose that was because a few months before that, I want to say in like 2018 or something like that, I saw an article saying that New York, it was either New York or the U.S., but I'm pretty sure it was New York, officially looked at Rasta as an official religion in the
Interesting.
city,
Okay.
right? And it clicked in my head that night, so I tell them I'm like, listen, me and my wife are Rastas, and I'm like, so I told them my wife worked for another company where they gave her a sheet where she was able to opt out of the drug test off a religious basis.
Mm.
That sheet does not exist. I just I said that because I knew if I said that they because I'm the lead inspector and I'm the first person working for them, I got the leverage. They need
Mm.
me.
Right.
So, I tell them that and she's like, okay, well, you're still gonna have to take the drug test, right? But we don't want you to take it and fail it because you may have to, you may get fired, you may take a
Mm-hmm.
drug awareness test, but a drug awareness class, but you never know. It's up to upper management.
Right.
She's like, I'll talk to some higher ups just to see if they can find a similar sheet or a similar form that exists in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So now this major corporation is calling other major corporations asking about a drug a drug test opt out religion form that does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a call later that day from the director of construction for this international construction management company, and he's like, you know, I heard what's going on. Don't worry about it. We had another guy that worked for us that was a roster, but he didn't tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So he took the test and failed. So he's like, we can't let you take the test and fail. He's like, so we got two options because we actually need you on this contract because the client told us if anybody stays, it must be you. So again,
Wow.
he's telling me,
We need
unbeknownst
you.
to him, right? He's really just giving me leverage.
Right.
So once he tells me that, I'm like, okay, he says the options are we can either bring you on as a private individual contractor. You wouldn't have the same benefits, but we would just pay you more in cash to, make up for that. Little did he know I had USAA. I already wasn't using their benefits, so that sounded better to me
Right.
than than for them to just push back the drug test. The language in the contract didn't permit them to bring me on as an independent contractor because it was too late. They had to have it on their bid.
Mm-hmm.
So they pretty much just ended up pushing back the drug test for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it sucked having to last for those 6 weeks to clean. But
Yeah. Yeah.
because I didn't even know how long it took to get clean. So he
Right.
asked me how long do I need. He said I looked online and it seems you'll need about a month. I was like, yeah, well, I'm 6'5", because I'm 6'5",
Right.
260 pounds. I'm a big dude. It may take me a
Right.
little longer because I did the same research and blah blah blah. And I sent him the article. He's like, okay, we'll push it back 6 weeks. And he pushed it back 6 weeks. I passed the test and I get the job. So from then on, I'm
Wow.
like, yo, I got the answer to getting around drug tests, right?
Right. Right.
and but what happens is I'm still working there, and again, as I'm using my extra money from my job to fund my business now got to the point where it needed to expand.
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't have the extra money. I don't want to start, emptying money from my credit card because I don't know when the money's gonna come back. So I'm like, I need extra income. Only way to really get extra income is to get clients from my business because
Right.
overtime wasn't really available because of the kind of contract it was.
Mm.
And me and my wife started getting frustrated with my pay and stuff. So I'm like, listen, I'm gonna start, answering some of these calls that are calling me about taking this job offer. So that the following January and February, I reach out to these two other major firms
Mm-hmm.
and they bring me in for an interview, but my resume had looked so good because all of the extra stuff I did on my job, even if it wasn't in my job description, I put it in my resume. But I didn't just put it under as, let's say my job was construction inspector. I didn't just put construction inspector. I do XYZ, which are regular construction inspector roles, and then add in, the other stuff that's not necessarily part of my job description. I wrote on my resume that I technically had two jobs on the same contract. So I wrote that I was a construction inspector and I wrote that I was an assistant office engineer because half of the job I was in the office helping the office engineer catch up on work. So
Right.
I'm like, I basically am an assistant office engineer.
I mean,
I'm
you
just not
actually
getting paid
have
for it.
you actually have an engineering degree too, right? You come
Yeah,
from an
yeah.
engineering background.
I got an electrical engineering degree from University of Akron in
Right.
2016. So, it's like I was a construction inspector, but my job, like what I was doing every day, was really half construction inspector work and half office engineer work.
Right.
So I put on my resume that I had two jobs,
That's
construction
factual
engineer,
though. That's
and
factual though.
exactly. It's just most people think you only allowed to put what your title is and what you get paid for. It's
Nah,
like,
that's what
nope.
you do. Yeah.
I do. I put everything I do, and if the
Right.
other stuff fit another title, I put that I got another title. And
Exactly.
who my job don't know that I'm even taking interviews or that my resume is out online. So I start getting the thing about that, which I noticed having, no one that works in construction management gets two titles because
Mm.
it's just too much work. So when they see two titles on my resume, Jobs are calling me crazy because they're like, this guy must have the sauce. Like
Right,
he's
right,
the one guy that we've ever seen that's able to work in the field and in the office and get paid for both. He must be damn good.
right.
So I go in for these interviews. I go in for these interviews, and I'm killing them. I had one interview that was awful where, the guy lowballed me tremendously. And then the other one, I went in and they gave me exactly what I asked for. And how I decided how much I wanted to get paid, I added up all of my bills in the house. I added up all the bills that was associated with my business, and I added in the bills that was associated with my wife's business.
Hmm.
And then I added on the extra 33% because of taxes, and it came out to like 40 an hour. So that's what I asked for. So it's
Right.
like any job that's paying less than that, they won't even look at my resume, which I didn't care because the last job I had was really only 8 blocks away from my house. So it's like
Hmm.
it's convenient even though I'm not getting paid a lot. So anybody that wants me to travel to their office is gonna have to pay me way more.
More, right.
And because of all of those things, a company took the shot on me, and now I'm one of the head office engineers on their project.
Word.
So it all kind of worked out in my favor. But the whole thing was, if I would have never used all of that background from my business of
Mm.
learning negotiation, and from my job of learning the backgrounds of the contracts and the org chart and things of that nature,
Right.
I would have never seen the leverage that I had. Somebody else could have just been like, "Oh yeah, they said they need me, so I could keep this job," as opposed to somebody think like me thinking they said they need me, so that means there's a bunch of companies that
That
need a
need me.
person
Right.
like me.
Right.
So the key is figuring out ways to leverage what you learned from your actual business to have a more productive 9 to 5, because at some point
Mm.
you're going to need more money than you have. And if it's not coming from you having more clients, you're going to have to get paid more from your 9 to 5.
Right. That's a
um,
good point. So it sounds like you're like leveraging not only like the skill sets that you're learning from your job, but you're also like using it as leverage to like
yeah,
scale up.
right. And the thing is, most people have leverage and don't even know it. You know what I mean? Like
What you mean by that? Like, can you touch on that?
some people work a job where it's like they're the only person that's consistent at the job and they hate it. And it's just like, that's your leverage. You're the only person consistent. You can now make
Right.
demands. But
Facts.
most people that's in that position, they feel like, oh, I'm so useless. The job looks at me so useless that they don't even care that other people aren't showing up. So I
Mm.
don't have any leverage. They look at that like almost as proof that they don't have leverage. But it's
Right.
like, if you the top employee, you got all the leverage.
Mm.
Because worst case, they want you there. It don't matter if they underpaying you or not. They want to. If they underpaying you, that's more of a reason for them to keep you.
Right.
Because you're cheap.
Cheap. Right.
So,
Right.
so it's like find your leverage, write it down, and that's like the first chapter
Mm.
of For the Hustler Volume 3 is gonna be that story, but with every single detail in it.
How does
Um,
one find a leverage? Like, so if I work at like I don't know, let's just say I work at a company and I also like finding my leverage. Does that necessarily mean that I also have to have a business on the side, or can I just find my leverage just like working, right?
Nah, yeah, you could have leverage just working at the job. So
Right.
one thing you want to look at is you know what do you bring to this job? Like if you're the cashier at McDonald's, what are
Mm-hmm.
you doing that store actually needs you there, right?
Mm.
Because whatever you're doing for them, you just know there's other companies that need that same service. So those
Right.
are the fact that those companies exist are your leverage because you can always leave and work somewhere else. Next, you look at all the other people that do the same thing you do. What else do you do at your job that they don't do or they can't do?
Right.
So for me, there was a gas explosion in Queens in I think 2019, like the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
where they were like digging to put in a bunch of stuff for a new residential building. And because I was like the top inspector on the job, they had me go out with the electricians, and we had to open up every manhole from 114th Street in Northern Boulevard all the way down to 29th Street, so like
Bro.
90 blocks. And that took like 2 weeks, right? And then after that, typically they would take because we open up all of them to see what fibers is in there, and then I have to write down, okay, this is how far the box is from the curb, this how far
Mm.
the conduit is from the curb, this how deep it is, all of that stuff. And the thing was, they were supposed to be able to take all of that information and give it to a consulting company, a private consulting company. I could turn it into a drawing, an official
Mm-hmm.
as bill for the state, and they were gonna have to pay them thousands of dollars to do it.
Right.
Um, I realized that in doing that, I was the only person there because in construction, most engineers are, civil or mechanical background,
Makes
but
sense.
most of them are civil because of, all the concrete and structures and things of that
Yeah.
nature. Electrical engineers mostly do design work,
Mm-hmm.
but, I just so happen to be the only guy with an electrical background that's really kind of dominating in construction management,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in New York City. And because they knew I had that electrical background, I had a background in creating drawings in AutoCAD because that's what all of my internships were,
Nice. Nice.
and I learned AutoCAD in high school.
Right.
They knew, oh, Trevor can hand draw these drawings to make it
Mm.
easier, so we know that it's correct. So of
Leverage.
course, I, g- I hand draw the whole thing, right? So that
Right.
takes like another week, and mind you, this is like 12 pages of
Yeah,
drawings that
that's you
I'm
said it's
hand
90
drawing
blocks,
on
right?
top of.
That's
Right,
crazy.
like
Yeah.
this is a lot of work,
And you
and it's
building this to
on.
scale and everything too. Like,
Yeah, and
like
I'm the only one on the job site that
that's
could do it,
crazy.
and I'm the youngest. Like I
Mm.
was 26 at the time.
Mm.
The next youngest person was 38.
Oh wow.
Right, and the last thing that let me know, Trevor, not only is it that you're an electrical guy that you know this stuff and they don't. The other inspectors, when they saw the drawings and like they got to make copies of it, they like, yo, Trevor, this is nice. I would have never been able to do this. I'm looking at them like, what the hell you mean you would have never been able to do this? Like, you an engineer.
Right.
So once they told me that, I'm just like, Trevor, it's no reason why you're not at least getting paid as the lead inspector and things of that nature.
Right.
So, when you get those extra things in your job, instead of you saying, I'm not doing that, that's not my job description, do it. That way you got
Write
proof
it
that you
down.
can do
Right.
it. Right, write it down. Write down everything you do that's not in your job description. Cause
Facts.
now all you gotta do is find who else in that building does those things.
Mm.
Now you technically got two jobs on your resume.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's a fact. That's an actual
So,
fact.
and it's just gonna look like, oh shit, they got a cashier and they're the assistant manager.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I've never seen this before. Call them in. Let's see what they talk about.
Right.
And for me, I've literally never been on an interview where it was like they just told me, yeah, you're not gonna get the job.
Mm.
Literally every interview I've been on, they offered me the job and I said no, or I said no before they even got a chance to offer me the job. So you always expect to be able to negotiate in a room. The company I work
Right.
for now, how they do it, they've taken the negotiation out of the protocol, where you send in your application online, you get a phone call from a person in HR, and it's just some nice lady in like New Mexico or Texas or something, right? So they're nowhere near you. You don't think they really know much. So they just ask you a bunch of questions, ask you how much you want to get paid, your experience, X, Y, and Z. Then I go in for the interview. Interview is great. And the one thing I did for my interview for people listening, and I talk about this in For the Hustler 3, you need to have, when they ask you, do you have questions? You need to start interviewing them
Oh, for
because they'll
sure.
take you much more serious. So
Right.
literally, and not only do you want to interview them, you want to have like lasting moments that they'll always remember. So just imagine this person saw 1,000 people today. Obviously, that's not possible, but just imagine, and they didn't remember your name, right? So they can't even go back to figure out which person was you. The one thing they'll remember is whatever you said or did in that interview. So one thing I would do is when they ask me if I had any questions, I'd be like, actually I do, and I reach into my book bag and bring out a notepad that already had 10 questions written on it,
Mm.
and I always wrote it in the middle of the notepad, so it seemed like I already been on mad interviews asking all these questions. So now I look like I'm the OG instead of him.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
I start running through the line. What day of the week we get paid? Is it bi-weekly or every week? Am I going to be in the office, in the field? What's the difference? What's the potential of me moving up? When this contract is over, what's the potential of me being brought on for another contract, or y'all going to throw me out? You know,
Right.
um, am I getting paid more than the average inspector or less than the average inspector? And I'm asking all these kind of questions where you
Right.
almost would have thought I already worked for the company.
Right.
So, um, me bringing that thing out the notebook, I sort of look on his face, eyes get wide, like, whoa, what is he about to do? So, in doing that, the last question I ask is, how much? is the rate for this job? And the dude tells me, oh, you'll have to talk to the lady Tracy who called you beforehand. And I'm like, oh, they slick. She the one that gets
Right, right,
to,
right,
you know, do the negotiating.
right.
But she the one, she the first person you speak to. You just think she's the nice old lady.
Taking all the regular questions, right?
Right, but little do I know, she the one who get to say whether or not I'm gonna get paid what I get paid. So I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And fast forward after that second interview with the horrible interview, I'm sitting in the parking lot after I get off the phone with my wife. I get a phone call and it's from New Mexico, whatever. I think it's either New Mexico or Texas. I think New Mexico. I see the area code. I'm like, let me pick up. I pick it up. Sure enough, it's the lady Tracy, and she's like, "Listen, your interview. I got the call back saying that they loved you and you were impressive. We just want to make sure that we can justify paying you your rate. So, do you have any other experience related to engineering that wasn't on your resume?" Now, mind you, on your resume is usually one page, so you're only telling them like your last maybe three jobs.
Right.
But in order to justify paying me so much, because like now I'm asking for 40, I already know that's more than what inspectors really make. Um, they're asking me like, do you got any internship experience, any of this, any of that? So I'm like, yeah, I got internships from college. I did this, I did that, and they're like, that's great. Send us the old resume that you had. We'll add the info on for you and submit it so you can get paid the rate that you asked for.
Mm,
And then the position I got, because I got paid so much, they couldn't just put I was an inspector, so they put me as a supervising construction inspector. You know what I
gotcha.
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like one, all I did was ask for more money, and because I was impressive in the interview using those power moves, now they asking me, trying to help me out to justify how much they want to pay me.
Right.
And most people I speak to have never been in a position even close to that in their life.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that's impressive. So it sounds like at this moment you're pretty much like leveraging.
everything.
Yeah, you're leveraging everything, right? It basically in you're just trying to like pull up, scale up in your 9 to 5. But like I'm trying to
Right.
get more so like how are you using your business specifically, right? So like for somebody who owns a business, I think
Mm,
you even said in the beginning, it's like a lot of people think if you have a business, you probably making like $300,000 a year
hmm.
from the business, and that's what's like that's what's driving your financial success. But
Right.
it's like we find out there's ways that you can actually set up your business that even if you're not really being that profitable, you can still improve your financial situation. So like
Hmm.
how have you like utilized your business or your businesses to sort of like help you in that manner?
So my business, Cassaberry Consulting, it started as a business consulting and like investment consulting company. But after a while, we kind of encompassed everything. When I was learning more about the contract and bidding side of the construction contracts, I realized with me having a consulting company, I could really bid on these contracts myself as a sub consultant. So now instead of
Wait, isn't that conflict of interest?
no,
Interesting.
um, so just think about it this way. Imagine there's another construction project that comes out, right? Or just imagine is because the state has contracts for everything, right? And the main reason I'm talking about leveraging your business for your 9 to 5, I'm talking about government contracts because especially as Black people, most of us actually work on government contracts and don't know it.
What you mean by that?
Like, if you work in the military, that's a government contract.
Right.
If you work in security, oftentimes that's some sort of government contract, whether you're in a building that got a government job in it or something like
Mm,
that. If there's people that answer phones for New York City DOT and stuff like that. That's on a government contract. They're
mm,
not regular employees. They
right.
they work for a company that won a contract to supply the labor.
Makes sense.
So um, I'm like, okay, I can literally have my company put it in position where I'm pre-approved to bid, and it's going to be hard for me to compete with these larger companies. But what I remembered from the company that forgot to give me that raise was they were actually a sub consultant. So there was a larger company that won the contract. The company that I was working for was essentially underneath them, where they were supplying, let's say, 10% of the labor. So when I learned that, I'm like, you don't have to compete with these major companies. You just start your business and negotiate with these companies to be a subcontractor. It's very similar to when I was trying to get around the piss test when the dude said they could one option was to hire me as an independent contractor. It was the same exact thing. So
Mm.
had he never told me that, I would have never realized I could subcontract, or if I never worked for the subcontracting company. Working there, I realized, okay, I got the leverage because if I become, a minority business, a certified minority business, New York City contracts mandatory have to have 25% of it go to women owned, minority owned, or locally owned businesses.
Okay.
And if you don't have that in your contract, it'll get thrown out unless none of the I mean, if you don't have it in your offer, it'll get thrown out unless all of the offers are missing uh, the minority quota, attached to it. So I'm like, once I get that certification, I have the leverage to now say, hey, I want to be brought on as a subcontractor instead of a full time employee. Otherwise, I'm going to leave and subcontract somewhere else. And the same way they didn't want to lose me as an employee, they damn sure ain't gonna want to lose me as a subcontractor because I
Right.
cost them less money because they don't have to worry about paying me benefits.
Hmm.
So anybody that works for a government contract, literally you can go online, look at your city record, and it'll show you what contracts are available. You can type in your industry and see, okay, these are the contracts available. This is how much money they usually go for. This is how much labor they usually want. And you can see the companies that are pre-approved and subcontract for them. So, like the company I work for now, I'm a registered subcontractor, my business. So once this contract is up, I'll go right back to them and say, yeah, if you want me back, I'm only coming back as a subcontractor. And that's if I decide to come back. If I don't decide to continue working in construction, I have the leverage by owning the company to just hire somebody else to work that same job I was working.
I see what you're saying, but that's like I feel like that's very specific to like contracting jobs, though, right? So
Yes, yes,
like for somebody who's like maybe say they own a business, I don't know, selling candles. Like I've been seeing
right,
that a lot lately. Like somebody who
right.
owns a business selling candles, but
You can use that.
they also work for the bank. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like how can they really utilize that candle business to supplement and like upskill themselves on that 9 to 5 at the bank?
So basically, it wouldn't be about leveraging the job you already have because they're not going to just pay you more necessarily to work that same job. I
Right.
would say you use that leverage for a promotion or to move to another company within the same industry. So,
And
for
I'm
instance,
sorry,
if you
a company within the industry of your own business right now. So if you have a
within the
candle
same industry you're
business,
working in,
okay, okay.
right? So, because you just want to move from one person to a competitor, it makes it like if I worked at one.
Coke, I'm going
If,
to Pepsi.
Right, right. It's a
Right,
much easier transition than trying to go to Yankee Candle or something like
right.
that, right? So, but the things that you have from your business, you find ways to see where they incorporate with what you're doing, what you would be doing in that next project or in that next job. For instance, like you said with the bank, let's say with your candle business, you had experience negotiating vendor rates and things of that nature,
Hmm.
and you had experience, let's say, getting a loan, for your business. If you had experience, if you had experience teaching other candle businesses how to leverage their businesses for loans and things of that nature, all of that stuff would apply to some position working at that
I
bank.
feel you.
So
We
now
talking
you
about the
put
skill
that.
sets that you gain from that business. I
Exactly.
feel you.
That skill set is the leverage. Because remember,
Right,
they don't know that you worked that job before.
right, right, right.
You just have it on your resume. This is my experience. You don't have to say I got this
So,
experience
I
working
feel you.
working for a candle company. You
So
say I
like
got this experience working at the bank.
right, so on your resume you put like a section for like experience, and you like I bet like I have experience working with vendors, I have experience working with like product managers or whatever, right, from that candle
Right.
business. But you just putting
But
it explicitly as just an experience and just making it
no,
evident.
I'm putting that as another job I work.
Oh, so I'm saying, so you saying you gonna put like another section and say you put your own job, but you saying are you gonna tell them that like you own that business, or you just putting it really vaguely as like
No,
this is
I'm
a
putting
company?
that. I'm putting that. I worked another job for that same company. So let's say your position was, I don't know that many positions at the bank, but let's say you were, you know,
A teller,
loan officer.
a teller, the
Yo,
person who greets
okay,
people.
sure,
Yeah, I bet.
sure, sure. The teller at the bank, right?
Uh huh.
I would put that you was the teller at the bank, and then let's say all those other things that you learned is things that you would have gotten from working as a assistant loan officer or something like that at the
Mm-hmm.
bank. Like whatever is the next step up at your job, you know, That's what you're looking for. Whatever skill sets is that next person up at your job in your org chart, you should somehow be developing them skills, whether on the job or in your business, because
Right.
it's usually going to be something more management related, or
Right.
working with outside clients. And those are the things that you're going to need to move up as a 9 to 5 person.
True.
So, but the key is you don't put it on your resume and say, "Oh, I learned how to do this at my candle company." You say, "No, I learned how to do this while I was working at the bank." And you just say, though that experience has me as assistant whatever. Like I put assistant office engineer on mine. I have somebody else who put like lead security guard and things like that on theirs. Even though they weren't the active lead security guard, they were using skills on the job that would have justified them being the lead security guard.
I see what you're saying, but I feel like isn't
So
that a little misleading though? Because in the sense that you're not like if you put that as a title, right? That's technically not your title. Like it would make more sense to me if you put it as like a vague experience,
what
like saying I
what you
have this experience.
you gave me the example of a candle to a bank, so I'm trying to go with your I'm trying to go with what you gave me.
I feel
but
you. I feel
but like if it was more close, like if, number one, I really teach most of my clients to start consulting companies. So when it comes to consulting, there's consulting
I
for
feel
every
you.
industry.
I feel you.
There's loan consultants, bank consultants, things of that nature. So as if you have that consulting company, it's always easy to make that transition,
I got you.
especially because whatever you're doing in that consulting company, you're likely doing on your job. Will it work
Makes
for
sense.
somebody that's working? Will it work for somebody that's working as like a cashier? Probably not so much because there's not much. I don't understand the corporate side of being a cashier, if that makes
Right.
sense. If you're working in a corporate office, which a bank I would include that as, then I think
Mm-hmm.
is you had that's where you find leverage, in your business. If you're working as a cashier, in no reality, you probably not making enough or accruing enough leverage at your job that you should even be using your business to try and move up to the next, lead cashier role. You should just be trying to make enough with your business that you could leave the whole cashier role altogether.
Mm.
So that's the other side of it. It's like, do you really want to utilize your leverage to go from cashier to manager at McDonald's, or do you want to use it to just go find, a higher corporate level business, in McDonald's corporate?
Got you.
You know what I
Got you.
mean? So those are the other things that get mentioned in the book is one, consulting. So consulting is a large part of what I talk about in For the
Right.
Hustler Volume 1. And then even when you purchase the book online at hustlerbooks.com, you get a free logistics consultation with me.
Right.
So, whatever space you in, whether it's you looking to get a new job or you have a business and you're looking to make it expand or you just started investing, you get to discuss that with me and I can like essentially give you a strategy to go towards that goal. So if anybody is like confused listening, there's always the opportunity to just meet directly with me by
Mm-hmm.
just purchasing one of the books on my website. If you get it on Amazon, it doesn't come with the free consultation.
Okay.
But as long a consulting company, you can always find ways to connect it to your business.
Yeah,
Although
there's so many different facets in consulting that you can always tie
r-
it back. Is what you're saying. That
right.
that totally makes a lot of sense.
But the job title isn't as because let's be honest, not everybody that you competing with for these jobs is telling the truth on their resume. Some people is straight up lying because
That's
I
facts though.
know them. I went to college with them, and they're winning because they're straight
Mm,
lying on their resume. And you know how you know who's lying when you work with them and they're the new manager and they have no clue what's going on.
mm.
That's the person that lied on their resume. But even though they get fired after 6 months, they made a lot more than you in that 6 months. And what they're gonna do? They're gonna lie on another resume and go get a new job and do it again until they learn enough at one spot to stay. And I went through it because I had a dude that came and worked for my old project. He used to fall asleep at the job, didn't know a bunch of stuff.
Mm.
He got out of there in like 4 months. But if you're somebody who all you doing is writing your skill sets on here and just putting it under a new title, I really don't look at it, as a lie. I look at it as uh, this is the job you working. You just not getting paid to do it. The same
I
way
see what
somebody
you're saying.
else would put volunteer experience on there, but I'm not volunteering to do this extra stuff at my job. I'm doing it because if I said no, they'd fire me. Like
Right.
like imagine I told them no, I'm not going to do that drawing for y'all. They'd be like, oh word, okay.
I bet you out. Yeah, yeah. No, I feel you. I mean, So I mean, I feel like with the example of the drawing, it makes sense, right? Because it's something you physically did at your
Right.
job. So like that's I can kind of see why somebody would say that's a different title. But I guess like for
Right.
my own sanity, I think if I was to like follow that, it probably makes sense for me to put that as like an experience that I did, like that I have, right? So maybe on my resume, it'd probably be like, all right, I have, and again, like terrible example, but like candle to a bank, like you know what I'm saying?
I
But
give you got to give me something different. You was a MLM salesman, and then but you was also working at the bank or something.
what's the MLM salesman? I don't even know what that is.
That's like the multimedia, multi-level marketing people and stuff like that. But
Got you, got you.
at least you work in sales, so that's more related to the bank
Exactly,
than
exactly.
making
So
candles.
I run this MLM business, right? So
Right.
under me, I have like a consultation. I have consultation skills. I have sales selling skills.
Right.
I have project management skills. There's a bunch of stuff that comes with that. So under
Right.
that, I can say I have experience in these things,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't say because I work at Bank XYZ, I'm gonna say that under Bank XYZ, I was a project manager. I'll probably say I have experience in project management.
Okay, so
You know what I'm
here's the
saying?
diff. Here. All right. So here's what I would say. Let's say you working at that bank, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out. Everybody that has a job is doing more tasks than their job description says. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think most people, more often than not.
Right. Especially if you're not upper level management, you're doing more than what your job description
Yeah.
asks for on the job by itself. More than likely, if you start a business, it's gonna be related to something you're doing on your job, or some skill you already had. But likely, you're gonna find if you're excelling in your business while working a 9 to 5, you're gonna have to find a connection between them.
Mm,
Otherwise, you're kind of just working two jobs all day, and one of them you're not really getting paid for.
mm,
Um, so most people, like I have a client now. She works as a chemist, right?
mm,
For a large herbal supplement company.
mm,
Now she has her own, herbal supplement line, but it's not the same kind of supplements that she would make at her job. So it's not in the same industry or competing.
mm.
One is like weight loss, the other one is vaginal health, right?
Okay.
um all the skills, all that extra stuff she was doing at her job is what helped her start her business on the side. Because if she was just doing what was supposed to be done in her job description, she wouldn't have the ability to do what it takes to run this small business.
Mm,
So at that point, if she was to to work at a new company or even go for a promotion, the idea would be all the things that you need for that promotion, like all those extra skill sets that they're looking for. If you've learned them on your job or used them in your business, you've likely used them on the job as long as there's some sort of connection there. So if for instance, again, I'm referring back to myself here, but them making me do the extra design work and the extra paperwork on my
mm,
job
mm,
made it much easier for me to do extra design and paperwork for my business. Like I wouldn't have been as masterful at Excel if I didn't have to do that at my job. I
right.
wouldn't be as masterful at contacting and researching vendors for products if I didn't have to do it at my job for like AC units and things like that. But just because, let's say I would have did it at my business first, I would have eventually started just doing it at my job because I'm good at it, or at least I would advise somebody to start doing it at their job so they can put it on their resume. The key is whatever job you're applying for afterwards, you still need to fit that. You still need to highlight the skills that they want for
No,
that job.
absolutely. I think I totally agree with you on that. I think the only like disconnect is coming from like just having that job title. I think that's the only thing. But I totally agree. If you have skills
Right,
that you're learning from either your business or from your 9 to 5, it should be transferable skills. You should be always looking for transferable skills.
right,
It shouldn't be that you're doing like one thing that like and you said it perfectly. It's like you don't want to be working like two jobs and you only getting paid for one really. Like
right.
you know what I'm saying? It should be transferable. So you learn something from here, you can use it to go to the other side and like vice versa. So I'm totally in agreement with that.
And the job title part may not work for everybody, depending on how their organization structure is, right? For me, it was a very easy plug to put in assistant office manager. I mean, assistant office engineer,
Mm,
because that's a real title,
right.
And if we did have an assistant office engineer,
That's
they
what he
would have been
do.
doing
Right.
exactly what I was doing.
Right.
If you the teller at a bank, I don't know what the next level up is, but I doubt it's loan officer. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
So so again, like a teller at the bank might not be the person who uses this to move up at their 9 to 5. They may use that to get a different position at a different company.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely like a really good like sort of really good sort of advice to get to people. Is that make sure that you're always looking for transferable skills in either business that you're working in, whether it's for your 9 to 5 or whether it's for from your own personal business. Like I think that's definitely something that people don't think about or aren't as intentional about. So I think that's definitely
Right.
good. Um, Real quick, I know we're like also running out of time, but like in your book, is there anything that kind of talks about, maybe setting up an LLC or, even getting an EIN number or anything like that to sort of like make
Um
sure you're scaling up on your financial health as well?
so in the book, I don't go into details with that stuff just because I feel like, you know, that's stuff that's very easily Googleable. Like, how do I get an LLC? You go to this website and you
Mm-hmm.
you have you pay somebody else to do it. If you really want to file your own paperwork to do it, good luck, but you better know what you're doing.
Right.
Same thing. Like if you want to do your taxes, I wouldn't write in the book how to do it. I'd be like, listen, you better go hire a pro.
A CPA,
You know,
yeah,
you
yeah,
you don't start a business to be a LLC, preparer.
yeah.
So that I don't give that advice. But what I really do give is more so. So book number one, the 4 chapters is broken up as mindset, business, investing, and negotiation. So the mindset portion, I'm really using quotes that open up your brain to new things. So like the number one quote in the book, or the first quote in the book is hold on, let me look at it real fast so I don't misquote it. The best way to make change in this country is with a pocket full of money,
Mm,
right? And it's like one person may look at that and say, okay, so I need more money to make change in this country. Another person who looking at it, may hear, oh, like the best way to make a little bit of money is still I'm gonna need more money than what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? So it's
mm,
like I'm gonna need, to spend $100 to make $20 a month. So, and I kind of explain that in the passage, and also in the passage, I pretty much just break down what are the ways to get, access to large sums of cash. So one, you could already have an asset that you either sell or use to produce an income. Let's say like
mm,
a home or whatever else, a car. You could have access to, credit, obviously, and you're using your credit card, or you're getting a loan. And then lastly, you could just pool your cash with other people that you know,
right,
right? And then in the end, I pretty much talk about for a community to take care of itself financially and economically, everybody in that community has to put their cash, their credit, and their assets together. Otherwise, they have to depend on another community to come in and give them those things.
right,
So if you think about low income communities, most people there, a lot of people got good credit, no cash. A lot of people got cash, bad credit. Then you got somebody that own a home and don't got cash or good credit. If
right.
all those people came together, they could be a powerhouse. But
Own
because most
stuff,
people,
yeah,
right, because most people just stay apart and try to work on it on their own. Now you got somebody else coming in that got all three. They get, they renting their house out to the person with the good credit and no cash. They selling stuff to the person with cash and no credit. And then, they giving out loans to the person that got the house but no cash and credit,
right,
and
right,
high interest loans. So my whole thing with For the Hustler One is just opening up your mindset so you realize how many options you have around you, and then giving you different ways to utilize them. So, from a marketing perspective, I talk about how to put together a pitch where you have, your hook story pitch. I talk about how to monetize, different products. Like if I give an example, if I sold a shoe, um, you have the option, I say something like, um, the market may determine the price, but you determine the value of what you offer.
mm,
So on the market, if you want to start a streaming, if you want to stream content, the market kind of already lets you know you ain't gonna really be able to stream content for $1 million a month. You know what I mean?
right,
But somebody like Netflix is actually giving you $1 million a month worth of value for that $5.
mm,
And that's how they pricing everybody out essentially. It's like they don't have to raise their prices to make it more exclusive. They can just put so much more value in there that now that $5 looks so much bigger.
right, right,
And you know what I'm saying? So book one is more so about opening up your mindset to see your different options. Book two is really to ask you questions that force you to establish your investment morals. So, you want to know before you start investing what companies you're looking for. Otherwise, you kind of just going off whatever you see on social media, right? So, I ask questions like, do you prioritize subsidiaries? And then in the passage, I give, what a subsidiary is, the pros and cons to investing in companies that own them. And for those who don't know, a subsidiary is a company that's owned by another corporation. So, if I have Cassaberry Consulting and I own, Cassaberry Payroll Services, Cassaberry Payroll Services is the subsidiary of Cassaberry Consulting.
AKA also the way that also a lot of companies are usually able to avoid taxes, but that's a whole different story.
Right. Right. So that book is, it does the same thing. You not it's not necessarily open up your mind to options, but opening up your mind to all the different details of how you're going to invest. So, before the book you may say I'm going to invest, $100 a month, but it's like, okay, are you going to invest $100 a month forever? Are you going to invest $100 a month in just dividend stocks? Once you get to $1,000 of value in your portfolio, are you going to start adding more? Are you going to auto invest your dividends directly into more dividend stocks? Or are you going to cash out and put it into something that costs less, like penny stocks? So when you go through a chapter in For the Hustler Volume 2, and each book has blank pages at the end of each passage and quote, so you can write down whatever thoughts you have. But when you go through each chapter in For the Hustler Volume 2, at the end, you literally have your own investment plan that's based directly off of your understanding of investing, as well as your current situation. So if you're somebody who doesn't have the funds to invest $1,000 a month, then obviously you're not going to have in your book that you're investing $1,000 a month. You may say, I'm investing $50 a month. That's fine as long as the plan continues to go from there. So I like to, help people detail their plans as much as possible because I'm a logistics consultant and that's what I do.
Mm.
And then for the Hustler Volume 3, again, doing the same thing with negotiation. So it talks about, if you're a consumer and you want to negotiate a rate, don't expect to just, if somebody's selling, jackets for $200, don't think that you're gonna find a way to negotiate buying one jacket for $100.
Right,
You better off either, one, you should have already purchased from them before you even start negotiating, because how you gonna negotiate and you never even had the product before,
right,
right?
right,
And then two, you want to start building, leverage. So one way you could do that is by purchasing more products at once. So an example I like is when I used to go to the Labor Day parade all the time. I didn't go for quite some time when I was in college, but I would go out there and the lady selling mangoes. I was used to the mangoes being like $2 in the bag. The lady was like $4. I said $4. I'm like, what if I buy two? She said it's $8. I'm like, what if I buy three? She said it's $12. I'm like, no, I'm out of. Yeah, if I buy three, it's 12. I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here because I'm like, there's got to be another mango lady. 2 blocks down, it's another one. How much is the mangoes? $4. I'm like, okay, so y'all all working together. Got
right, right,
it. I'm like,
right.
how much for two of them? $8. How much for three of them? $12. Okay, I'm going to the next one. I get to the third one. How much is your mango? She say $4. I'm like, yeah, I figured. How much if I buy three? I just skipped the whole two, and then
Right.
she's like, if you buy three, I give it to you for $10. I'm like, yep, okay, I could
I
do that.
bet. Right.
Because I'm like, I'll pay more just to lower my rate because I know we're gonna eat these mangoes all day.
Right. Right. Right.
So the other option is, if you want to negotiate with somebody for your rate, you could have brought them a bunch of other customers. So it's like you went there, you bought a jacket. If we back to a clothing store and they're selling jackets, you bought a jacket. Then you brought your wife, she bought a jacket. Then you brought your, two people from work, they came and bought jackets. Now you got a relationship where you could say, hey, I was wondering, I want this custom jacket made, but yada yada yada. And now you can negotiate the rate on stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, don't think you're just gonna see a jacket on
And just bargain
hanging
your
up
way through
for
that.
200, right? And be like, yeah, what I gotta do to get this for 125? Like, walk out the store and make it for 125.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know. So I
All
really
right.
teach like the setup steps to negotiate in, the setup steps to invest in, and the setup steps to a business.
Word. I mean, so it sounds like book three is basically like we just kind of touched on a snippet or a preview in this interview
Right. We
or in
we
this
touched
episode.
on chapter one. So
Right.
yeah, what I but again the real meat of it is one, the reason I put it in that order, most people are gonna start off as an employee. Next thing they're gonna do is likely be buying a product,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they start a business. You're likely buying a product before you start selling one. Next, then you'll start, selling your products, right? And you want to be able to negotiate properly. And the number one thing, if you selling a product, know who you even negotiating with. Like most people is not worth even wasting the time negotiating.
Mm.
So if they don't already have a relationship with you where it's worth negotiating, it's a waste of your time
Mm.
as a merchant. And then the last thing, once you understand it from a employee, a seller, and a buyer perspective, is understanding how you actually can help employees, sellers, and buyers, and that's by being that agent or that closer or negotiation consultant, whichever term works best in your industry, to link two businesses or a business and a freelancer of some sort, and having products on your own that you're able to put in that are valuable, where you can get paid, going forward. So
Word.
for me, I like doing the consultation. So it's like if I have somebody who sells a $1,000 service, I can put in a consultation that costs $200, and they just have to bump their price a little bit, right?
Gotcha.
Um, if it's somebody that sells, a $50 service, it's hard for me to put in a consultation that costs a lot more, so I can put in my book. If it's somebody that sells a $20 product, I could put in my ebook. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So,
Yeah.
and
You
then
just,
if it's there's always something I can put in where I'm getting paid while I'm not making sales,
right. You
and
pricing
that's
out the market. That makes sense.
right, and that's the key to it. So like right now, I work with businesses. Like there's one business that does life coaching. That I don't have to make those sales. He makes his life coaching sales, and everybody that buys it gets my book. I
Mm.
got another product I'm working on soon. Somebody, they make the proxy and resin art. So that they do
Mm-hmm.
like ashtrays and rolling trays and paintings and things like that. So they'll be coming out with different products that have, my Cassaberry logo and my For the Hustler books on it and stuff like that. And now I'll be able to push my ebooks in there where now I'm making $5, $10 off of her sales without me
Mm.
having to do a thing. And
Word.
that's the end goal that a lot of people looking for. But if you don't have the products that's necessary, where you could always throw something in there no matter what the offer is, then you kind of stuck to just being hey, this is my friend who can provide the service you need, and you got to hope that they're willing to give you some money at the end of that.
Mm. Mm.
Otherwise, you're just a nice guy, but you're not a businessman.
Word. Damn. That's a lot of game right there. All right, yo, Trav, appreciate you, bro. Where can people get their hands on for the Hustler series books, and when can we expect Volume 3 to come out?
Okay, so for the hustler, you can purchase the full series or just one book at a time at hustlerbooks.com. And again, get it there so you can get a free logistics consultation with me. And we could kind of go over whatever area of business investing or negotiating you want to. Um, if you want to get in contact with Cassaberry Consulting to book a full logistics assessment, uh, we're actually running a special until June 2nd where you get the full logistics assessment. It's a 2 hour assessment for half price. So that'll be, $150. And pretty much in there, it's typically for people who already have businesses. We go over what products they already have. So one that can acquire, one to use to acquire customers, one to retain those customers, and then one to essentially create more customers. And that creation portion is the whole finding another business that you can throw your product in with their existing offers.
Mm.
From there, we do, the pricing and packages and the profit goals, and then we come up with different ways to actually push the product, all right, at the end. So the full logistic assessment can be found at cassaberry.com. That's CASSABERRY.com. And when you purchase the full logistic assessment, if you didn't already have your free consultation beforehand, it'll still come with all three copies for the hustler. And to follow me on Instagram, you can follow my personal page at Don underscore Travolta. That's DON underscore TREVOLTA. You can follow Cassaberry Consulting on Instagram and Facebook at Cassaberry Consulting. And you can follow For the Hustler on Instagram at for underscore the hustler. And on Facebook is just straight For the Hustler.
Mm. Word. All right, Trav. We appreciate you, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be interested in your services. I know I definitely am. Appreciate you coming
For
on the
sure.
show, giving us a lot of game. And for our listeners, we hope you learned something out of this, and we hope that you'll be able to take a lot out of what Trevor was saying. And there's the plugs that was there, so please make sure you reach out and at least get a free consultation, and you can't go wrong with that.
Not at all.
So as always, we really appreciate y'all for listening. For all of our listeners, if you want to check us out on mentalityradio.com. Catch us on Instagram, Mentality Radio, and anywhere that you listen to your podcasts on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And until the next time, we'll catch y'all later. Deuces.